Baldwin, which is where we went to school, Senator Serval and I, and maybe some of you as well. So it's good to see you all. I just want to welcome you and thank some of the staff and volunteers, especially Marguerite Mars, for getting us the coffee. Let's give her a hand. And all of our staff and the others will get an opportunity to talk about that. My aide is on her way up from Richmond, so she's on her way. So hopefully she'll have some good things. And if you want to sign my petition to get on the ballot, please do. I just want to give you also ground rules because we do have a number of people, which we can obviously tell, are not from the district. And we do, this is the Mount Vernon, Franconia, 16th and 17th, and the 35th Senate District. And so that, it's, we're going to give priority and certainly let all of our constituents have the first opportunity to speak and ask questions and everything else. And so you guys will go next. But I also just want to say, even though we do some issues, and there's one obvious issue that I can see here in the room, it doesn't mean that I don't think, I'll tell you, and let me tell you, and you guys should all respect this because Senator Serval and my colleague in the House, Delegate Tickle, are amazing leaders and do an incredible job. And they are great colleagues to have. And right now, when you have all of the things that are going on in D.C., the chaos that is the Trump administration, you want these guys because they are fighting the good fight back in Richmond. And we are going to, and it's really important that we have leaders like that. And there's no better legislators and harder working people. We have a little rule in our household that after midnight, we don't take any phone calls from these guys because they will call late at night to work on legislation. And then at 6 a.m. they'll call again. So I don't know when they're sleeping, but we try to sleep. So my daughter's here. I want to thank my daughter, Chloe. Chloe, where are you? There she is in the back. Stand up, Chloe. Chloe's my #1 campaign worker. So thank you, Chloe. And so it's good to see everybody here. And I want to say that all the way from Pittsburgh in North Carolina, the Sykens boys are here. And we remember Supervisor Warren Sykens, who was a great friend and did a lot for our community. And when you see that new pool, when the pool and the new ice rinks, there's going to be 2 of them. And they're supposed to be open this summer, so you got to come back for that. When that happens, it all started with Warren Sykens. So let's give them a big hand. Thanks for coming. I also want to say that we lost the supervisor who was here for the longest time, 22 years, 28 years, Jerry Highland. And he passed away last week. And he was really a mentor to all of us. And he also was one of those guys who's worked all the time. I remember driving down Collingwood one time, and then there's a man up in the tree. And it was Jerry Highland. He was actually cutting a constituent's tree limbs, and he was up there. I don't think he knew what he was doing really. And so I pulled over and I said, "What are you doing?" I know it was in his house. And he said, "Well, this is an old lady who lives here. She called, and nobody else could help her." So that was Jerry Highland, really, in a nutshell. He was always there for us.
He would not be happy today.
Yeah, I know he would. Yeah,
he would not.
He was just an amazing guy. And it's a big loss to the community, but I'm glad I was able to spend some time with him in his last 4 weeks too. Anyway, so without further ado, let's have just a moment of silence for the victims of the plane and helicopter crash victims. Okay, thank you very much. I will start it with our Senator, Scott Serval.
Thanks, Paul. And, thank you for coming out. This is my 16th one of these, and we always try to do it every year. And it's a great opportunity to have feedback with my constituents, hear your questions. I'm going to, I guess I'll just kick it off and I'll do my thing and I'll hand it over to Mark and you, right?
Yeah. Go by seniority.
That's Mark's senior to me.
Well, that's true. You can go.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll go first. So, it's good to be here. As Paul said, I went to intermediate school here when the school had a different name. Stephen Foster Intermediate School, had my ninth grade dances down the cafeteria over there. I don't think this room existed back then. And this is the band room now. Band was out back then. But it always brings back memories to be here. I represent the 34th Senate District, which is basically everything between the Potomac River, the city of Alexandria, the Occoquan, and I-95, roughly speaking. Not exactly, but roughly. This year is a short session. It's a 45-day session. We have a 60-day session, long session, 45 short. This is the short year. So we do a 2-year budget. We did that budget last year. This year we come back and make amendments to the budget based on sort of changes that happened over the last 12 months. That's why it's only 45 days. I'm continuing to serve as chairman of the Courts of Justice Committee. That committee gets about I get about 240 bills per session, something like that, in a short session. Second highest bill volume of any committee in the Senate. I'm also chairman of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on General Government, which is sort of covers everything that everything else doesn't, which is a lot of stuff. It's also my second session as the Senate Majority Leader, which happened last year, and that also brings a whole other set of responsibilities that I have to navigate. And it's an honor to serve all you all. Really quick, just the other things. This is Governor Youngkin's last year. Okay, I mean that to be an applause line, but glad you're all happy. We're waiting to see if he's going to try and sort of make a mark this year to sort of do something about his legacy. So far he's been mainly known for vetoes. He's vetoed twice as many bills as any other governor in Virginia history, and he has 1 year left. We'll see how that goes. I don't know about what you guys have seen, but his administration has not taken a position on virtually any bills in the committee, so it's kind of hard for us to figure out what he favors because he will never tell us. And we never get any feedback on anything until we get a veto. So it's probably going to be more of the same as my guess. We'll see. We also have an election year coming up, and these two are next to me. And election years always bring a sort of different vibe to the bodies as people put in things that they know is not going to pass, or they put in things, for there's a lot of speeches that are given for campaign reasons and all that. More probably in your chamber than ours, but I have detected some new talking points coming through the speeches on our side, which I guess the guys on your side are feeding through. So that sort of tends to happen in these years. In terms of our budget, I'm going to mention the budget really quick, but I'm a newbie to the budget process. I joined the Senate Finance Committee last year for the first time. These two are very senior. Mark's number 2, Paul, what are you, 5 now, or 4? Number 5 in the House Appropriations Committee. They've been doing the budget thing way longer than I have. But, and we also frequently, the chambers have a little bit different views of the budgets. That hasn't really fleshed itself out yet, but the budgets are being announced. The House and Senate budgets are being announced tomorrow, the amendments to what the governor proposed. The view from our side, at least, is that there's a little bit of a surplus in the first year of money to spend, money that hasn't been spent. In the second year, things are super tight. And so at least in terms of our chamber, we're not trying to create any new obligations that carry over year to year to year to year, because if you look down the pipe, there isn't any money. There's a little bit of one-time money in the first year. One of the things that as the chairman of the General Government Subcommittee, one of the things we look at is state employment. We got a presentation a week ago that said that 22% of state employment positions are vacant. And so if you want to know why we have a surplus, from my point of view, it's because we don't have any employees, because we have big vacancies. And so I'm not really clear that the surplus is really a function of the raging economy versus just the empty spots all over the government. So anyways, that's just one variable out there. We also found out we had a $600 million Medicaid misforecast that we have to plug. It's going to eat up a lot of money. I'm going to leave it to these guys to talk about some of the other things that may have popped up. But we're mainly looking at one-time things. And by the way, if you haven't gotten one yet, grab one of these, which is my legislative agenda. On the back end of it, it's got my budget amendments that I'm carrying here. In terms of some big bills, normally there's some big pieces of legislation that kind of dominate the discussion. I don't really feel like that's happening this year. The governor he's proposing this car tax credit thing, which is sort of a temporary car tax thing for people that are low income, even though we currently exempt the first $20,000 of value in a car from the car tax. That would cost about $1 billion, and that's not going anywhere in our chamber. I'm not sure about yours. But other than that, I thought the session would be all about data centers. Most of the data center bills have sort of gone away, I think. There's a couple of small ones that are out there, but the data center discussion is really a long-term discussion, and it's a real complicated mess. But Virginia has basically become the data center capital of the world. I'm not speaking figuratively on that. That's the reality. We have more data centers in Virginia than they do anywhere else in the world, including London and Bangkok or something before. But we have a higher concentration than anywhere in the world, partly because of that node that in Loudoun County where the cable comes in from the Atlantic, and they get really low latency when you push the button, it responds really fast. So a lot of people want their data centers right there. But also we have a tax exemption for the sales and use tax exemption for all the equipment in the data centers. And that costs all of us about $1 billion a year right now. And the data centers come here because of that tax exemption. But the things suck up a lot of power. They have a data center campus plant in Chesterfield right now that would consume the entire output of one nuclear reactor. And each data center they built today usually takes about the same power as 60,000 houses. And it's causing us to blow out our clean energy goals. And when we have to string new wires to the things, it costs everybody in this room money. So these are things we're trying to figure out and balance out, but it's not something we can just figure out in 45 days. So you're going to hear a long-term dialogue about that. There's some more discussion about fentanyl. There's a fentanyl murder bill that's moving through. Fentanyl continues to be a problem. We released it from my committee for the first time this year with a lot of amendments. I'm not sure we're going to be able to reach a compromise on that, but the fentanyl crisis has abated a little bit, but it's still a real problem. And so you might read a little bit in the paper about that. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of just sort of overall kind of vibe, what's going on in DC is definitely starting to affect what we do in Richmond. On Tuesday, we found out that basically all the federal funding streams we're supposed to rely on got frozen. It kind of makes it hard to do a budget when all your federal money vanishes, at least for 48 hours. So there's a lot of concern that the rules on Medicaid are going to be completely rewritten, which is about, 30% of our budget. There's federal funding streams on education, on natural resources, on transportation. There was about $7 billion in grants, including the grant to Route 1 for the bus rapid transit that got hung up on Tuesday. And so we're all trying to figure out exactly what all that means, what the new administration really means, aside from the fact that the entire federal workforce is on edge right now and is wondering if they have a job tomorrow. So these are all things we're hearing about. And if you look at my agenda here, I'm just going to blast through these really quick. Hit some highlights. On page 2, I have Senate Bill 775 that requires labeling on any election ads that have AI, so people can't put up a fake ad and not know whether it's AI or not. This stuff's way too late now. I think about 24 states have passed these kinds of laws. That's up on the floor tomorrow. I have a study looking at consolidating state and federal elections. I haven't met many people who like the fact that we have elections every single year in Virginia, and it would save our taxpayers a lot of money. I think it would save a lot of voter fatigue, it would be higher turnouts, but it's probably about an 8-year process. This is just a study to try to figure out if we want to do it, if so how. We passed that a couple days ago. 835 is my college opportunity endowment fund. The state has, I talked about this last year and the year before, the state has a $1.5 billion surplus in our 529 plan, and I want to take $1 billion of that, put it in an endowment, and fund about 2,000 free scholarships a year to kids to go to Virginia schools on a free ride if they're Pell eligible. That's got kind of hung up because the governor got involved in it, which I can explain if everybody really wants me to, but we're just going to wait till next year when he's gone. Then Senate Bill 1008. In Mount Vernon, we've had a lot of problems with contractors not understanding the living shoreline rules. Larry Zaragoza is here somewhere. There's Larry. But contractors have been telling people they can rebuild their bulkheads on their shorelines when they can't, and it causes all kinds of problems. This requires contractors to show that they understand the Chesapeake Bay Act and they understand the living shoreline rules. The next one, 1324. This one relates to an abortion clinic, which is actually right next door. If you go out here, when you leave here today, you might see some abortion protesters out here across from the library to the fire station. Are they there?
Yeah, they do.
Okay. Well, we've had some of the women trying to get in and out of there have been having problems getting accosted by protesters just trying to get inside to use services, whether they're trying to either get abortion services or get birth control or other reproductive health services. And the bill basically just treats an abortion clinic like a polling place. Puts a 40-foot no contact circle outside. You can't speak to anybody within that circle, and you can't obstruct anybody from getting in. And a bunch of protesters came down and complained about it in the committee, but we passed it. It's going to be on the floor, I think, tomorrow or Tuesday for a vote, and then you guys will get to see it. 917 is a bill I'm carrying with the caucus chair of the House of Delegates, Kathy Tran. That allows collective bargaining for all state employees and all local government employees. Virginia has about 750,000 state and local government workers. Only about 58,000 have collective bargaining right now. Like Fairfax County. By the way, Supervisor Stewart, thanks for coming in. The Board of Supervisors authorized the collective bargaining. Right now it's by option, but the Board of Supervisors has to agree. There's only 8 counties that have agreed to it, so this would allow for everywhere else and at the state level. 982 is the entertainment district bill, which a lot of you are here for today. Which I'm happy to talk about. I'm going to get some questions about that, I'm sure, so I'm not going to even talk about it now. I'll wait till I get a question, I'll talk about it. And then if you go to the next page, on 776, those of you who live near the Parkway, you know the problem, how bad speeding has become, you know about the number of accidents we have, and you know the United States Park Police is completely AWOL. They basically non-existent. And ever since Bijan Geyser got shot in the head. And by the way, something that we have in McLean have in common. Bijan lived in McLean, and he was shot and killed down here after a car accident. But this bill basically requires or allows the county police and the state police to conduct traffic enforcement on the Parkway. Right now they're prohibited by statute. And it also allows the county police or the state police to negotiate with the Parkway to Park Service to install speed cameras. I think if there was speed cameras in front of each of these intersections, right? If there's a speed camera right at Bellevue, Bellhaven, everybody slow down, there'd be a lot fewer accidents. 1007, again, something actually Supervisor Faust and I have been trying to get done. You know, if you all remember Faust, if you're from McLean. We don't have enough money for bike and pedestrian infrastructure. Right now, our current funding formulas don't cover bike and pedestrian; they mainly just cover transit and roads. And so this originally was a bill to fund bike and ped, but nobody liked my tax. So now it's turned into a study directing the MBTA to work with Supervisor Stork and other local governments up here to figure out how we're going to fund bike and ped. Then we're going to come back next year and hopefully pass something. The last bill I'm going to talk about is 1466. This has to do with sealing of criminal convictions. This is a bill that I passed in 2021 with the Majority Leader Cheryl Herring, who represents Alexandria, allowing people to seal their criminal convictions. Virginia is one of 36 states we're one of 14 states where you're not allowed to seal a felony conviction, and we're one of only 9 states where you can't seal a misdemeanor. So we passed the law allowing that, but it took 4 years to implement it because we had to spend $25 million upgrading our criminal background infrastructure at the state police. And that's now done and it was set to go live on July 1, but there's a lot of problems with the law. For example, we discovered the way the law was drafted, if you got your felony conviction sealed, you could not buy a gun in Virginia because the state police would see your conviction, but you could go buy the gun in Maryland because Maryland couldn't see that Virginia had sealed the conviction. Or, for example, it authorized certain offenses to be sealed that we didn't anticipate, like stalking or cross-burning, involuntary manslaughter, stuff like that. And so we're changing the list of exempted crimes that you can never seal to make sure we've picked up all the domestic violence crimes, sex crimes, and some crimes of violence. So anyways, that bill is moving through. You guys will probably see it Tuesday. We'll probably pass it Tuesday on our side. Then on the budget amendments really quick, I'm just gonna hit a couple of those. First page, I have language prohibiting the Attorney General from appealing the RGGI ruling. RGGI is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. The Attorney General told the governor he had the power to pull out. We all said he didn't. We all said the law says you can't. The governor didn't listen. The court said the governor's wrong, he broke the law. Now they're trying to appeal it. This is probably the 4th or 5th time the Attorney General's been wrong on his legal advice. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we had to pay $1.8 million because the Attorney General told the Department of Corrections they didn't have to release a bunch of people because of another law we passed that he didn't like. So he keeps giving legal advice, keeps costing us money. Keep that in mind. On the next page, Elgin Krizek and I are carrying an amendment to fund Mount Vernon Home, which is a group that was created around here to help senior citizens be able to age in place in their home instead of going to a nursing home. We're trying to provide some seed money to expand that model statewide. There's 12 of these senior villages in Virginia right now, and we think there ought to be a lot of other places. I have an amendment here to provide $125 million for bus rapid transit on Route 1. That's a $1 billion project, but the Federal Transit Administration came in, $75 million short? 100 million short, something like that, 100 million short on their grants, and now we have a $125 million shortfall, trying to plug that hole. We normally don't fund transportation this way, but we're going to see if we can work some magic. Down here I got the, I represent one family whose her husband died he was a police officer in the January 6th thing, and he passed away just after January 6th happened. But because of the way Virginia law works, she's not eligible for the property tax exemption because he wasn't a Virginia police officer. So my bill just makes clear that any police officer whose family member, any police officer who died as part of January 6th, his family can take advantage of the property tax exemption we have for Virginia police officers killed in the line of duty. And I got a bunch of others I can talk about. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And again, I know y'all, if I hear for the casino, I'll tape that up and the question gets asked. I know there's going to be some of those. So pass it off to who's next.
Even though Mark's got the most seniority, he has the least precincts over here, so that gives me a little bit. But I just want to let you know that this is a big weekend, and it's interesting that we chose this. I think I'm the one to blame, right? Because as the senator said, tomorrow we're going to be presenting the budget, and that means we're going to be live in committee at 11:30. I think it comes up. We'll be up 1:30. I think is when we get to it. And I think the Senate budget's like at 4 o'clock or at 3. It's a little later. Senate, yeah. But they always like to do theirs a little bit after ours, so maybe if they see what ours is, they can change it dramatically at the last second. But and then we have crossover on Monday, Tuesday. So all of our bills, and this year, because it's a short session, we can only introduce 15 bills. You can also introduce resolutions and things like that. So I have 12 bills that are crossing over, and a number of budget items, so I'll go through that. So it is a busy time, and we're also very, very cognizant of what's happening in Washington, D.C., and we've had school board members have visited us, supervisors have visited us, and there's a lot of constituents. Many of you I've seen down there already, and I appreciate you coming down. Larry has already been there and testified in support of one of my bills, and I appreciate that. But it's very scary times because what I'm hearing from the school board members is that a lot of kids who are U.S. citizens aren't going to classes, they're not going to school because their parents are afraid to walk in there. So I think we need to think about ways to help the community to walk these kids, to maybe work with the United Community and some of the other nonprofits and with the supervisor's office, school board members, and help make sure that these kids feel safe and their parents feel that they're safe and they can get to school. That's one of the, I want to say unintended consequences, but you all know that's not true. It's an intended consequence, and that's what's happening. So we have a big issues with that. But anyway, I'll go through I think my aide who drove up all the way from Richmond this morning got here a little late, and I don't know if she got my bill package that I was presenting, but if you don't have it, get it on your way out. But I'm just going to go through some of the things. And I want to start with the constitutional amendments, because I'm on the Privileges and Elections Committee. I was the Campaign Finance Subcommittee Chair, and now I am the Gubernatorial Appointments Subcommittee Chair. But what happens with the constitutional amendments is we have to pass them this year through both bodies, and then we have to have an election. So next year, so we have the election coming up, and then next year we have to pass it again, the exact same constitutional amendments. So in 2026, if they pass again, then they go to you as a referendum in the 2026 November, on your ballot in November 2026. So that's very important, and the governor plays no role in that. So we only need to be able to pass it out of the House and Senate twice with an election in between. So this election is very critical, obviously. We want to keep the majority so we can do that. And the three constitutional amendments, and one of which comes from my Delegate Sickles, and I'll let him talk more about that one. But the first one, of course, is the fundamental right to reproductive freedom. So we're enshrining Roe v. Wade in the Constitution. And then we have, we're one of maybe two states that convicted felons, after they've served their time, lose their right to vote and cannot participate in civic life. And we have a process in Virginia where the governor can look at each on a case-by-case basis, but that's very, very slow. And these are people who've already served their time, and they were convicted felons, but they've served their time. And I think that we all agree that they should get back into society, get a job, get housing, and be able to vote. And that's what this constitutional amendment would be. It would be automatic restoration of rights. And then the one that Delegate Sickles worked on, I'll just mention it, but I'm sure he'll want to speak to it, is the repealing the constitutional provision which passed in 2006, which defines marriage as a union between one man and one woman. We're going to get rid of that, and that should not be in the Constitution. It's already so that's everything. But also, I've been working, even though I'm no longer the chair of the campaign finance subcommittee, I am working very hard and actively with Delegate Sickles, who's also on privileges elections, on campaign finance reform. And I think what you're going to see this year is more campaign finance reform bills coming through. I know we've got a number of them, maybe 6 or 7 that are going to the Senate. So if the Senate will support them, we're in good shape, right? So one of mine is the creation of a comprehensive campaign finance information portal. So this would be, everything would have to be up on the portal, all of it, so you could search it, the Department of Elections would put it up there, you could get all the data on candidates, elections, committees, contributions, expenditures, violations, which are not currently available. So it would be total transparency, and I think that is the least we can do, right? And then we have another one, which you would think this is already the law of the land, but to prohibit personal use of campaign funds. So I'm a chief co-patron on that. I've been working on it for a long time, and that would not allow us to transfer any of our campaign money to use for anything personal. So it's monitored. And then my big focus, because I'm the chair of the Public Safety and Transportation Subcommittee on Appropriations, is and also the chair of the ABC Gaming Subcommittee on General Laws, is really public safety. I think that obviously what you see going on when you have airplane accidents, it reminds you that's government's role, right? To make the public safe, to keep us safe. That's a primary role. And so that's why I've got a number of bills that do that, a number of budget items, and I'll give you a couple of them. One of the things that needs to happen is we need to create a Virginia Gaming Commission. Right now, there is no one-stop shop. All the different kinds of gambling that's out there, and maybe coming down the pike as well, right? So, and we need a professional staff that can look at these new bills, new expansions of gaming, and really come back to us and tell us what they recommend. And I mean, I'll give you an example. Right now, you could go online and you can bet on sports betting. You can do it, and it's legal. There's 21 licenses, and on sports betting, you have to be 21 years old to do it. And you have to, it's a 15% tax, and 2.5% goes to problem gambling. But you could also go to a fantasy sports app. Oh, and that first app is regulated by the lottery. So lottery regulates that app. Then you can go also online. You can go to a fantasy sports app where you only have to be 18 years old, and they don't even pay a tax. They only pay an $8,000 annual fee. And one of those fantasy sports companies has 125,000 Virginians participating. So you know they're making a lot more money than $8,600, and they pay no money into problem gambling, And like I said, it's 18 years old. And it's also very similar to real sports betting. For example, all you have to do is it has to be multiple bets in one, like what they call a parlay. So instead of in fantasy sports, you'd have to bet, let's say, the Commanders and the Commanders to win by 20 or something like that. If you hadn't done that last week, you would have lost a lot of money. But in all seriousness, you just need two or more bets in the same bet, if you will, what they call a parlay. In regular sports betting, you could just bet the Commanders to win or whatever. You could bet anything, and you could bet parlays as well. But if you just bet one, that's the distinguishing. That's not good enough, right? I mean, we've got to do better, and that's regulated by the Department of Agriculture. Right? Does that make any sense? So you've got two, and then you've got a third way to bet online. You can bet on any racetrack in the world. Right now, it's legal in Virginia. You can bet on any racetrack in the world. You only have to be 18, and that's regulated by the Racing Commission, the Virginia Racing Commission, which is 5 people appointed by the governor. They don't have a general counsel. They don't have much of a staff, and they're in charge of that. Plus, they're also in charge of all of the Rose, that casino that's on 95 when you're going south in Dumfries. They're in charge of about 5,000 historic horse race machines, which are slot machines as well, in about 8 or 9 areas. But so you've got 3 agencies right there, and then there was, for 1 year under Governor Northam, we had legalized, it was a 1 year during COVID emergency situation to help 7-Elevens and C-stores. We legalized the skill games. They're illegal now. They're still out there, and they should. And most of them are getting shut down. Have been getting shut down, but there's been many court cases, and it's clearly illegal. And those skill games we're bringing in a lot of money to an outside company out of Georgia, but that was being regulated by ABC, and ABC has nothing to do with that, right? So you've got to get this. We've got to get control of gambling and put it under one roof, and then we can look at expansion. But my feeling is we've done a lot of new gaming throughout Virginia. We have 5 casino licenses. Only 3 of those casinos are built and run. So we've got 2 more to come. Let's wait. Let's take a deep breath. Pause before there's any expansion. Get this gaming commission running, and then we'll have a professional. The other things I'm trying to do is also I've got a bunch of bills to raise the gaming the age to gamble up to 21. So there's also live charitable Texas Hold'em tournaments. There's 2 licensees in Richmond, and it's 18. I'm trying to move that to 21. And also, as I said, that fantasy sports, I'm going to move that to 21. And then we can regulate that. Once we have this new body set up, we'll move it into there, and then we'll regulate that. And we'll have better regulations, and then we'll pay some taxes and everything else, and money towards problem gambling. I have another bill putting more money in problem gambling. In the budget, I have a couple budget amendments that also put money towards problem gambling. Problem gambling is a big, serious issue. Let me tell you, it has more suicides by double any other addiction. In all the addictions that are out there, is problem gambling is twice as many suicides. And we are running out of money in our problem gambling program. So when that comes to you guys in the Senate, please make sure you put some money in there. So I've got, thank you. I'm working also on protecting our environment. I asked the speaker to put me on the Ag Committee because that's where all the environmental bills come through. And as you know, last year I had a bill to ban English ivy. The governor vetoed it. The problem with invasives is very serious, and we do have Delegate Bulova has put a bunch of money in the budget to help us combat that, so I'm excited about that. I have a bill that Larry came down, the Virginia Great Outdoors Act. That was to secure more money for Virginia's neglected state parks. We have like a $311 million backlog of maintenance issues at our state parks. So we've got to figure out how to get them a dedicated source of revenue, and also to grow public outdoor spaces and conserve natural resources and battlefields and things like that. So that bill is still, I don't know if it's going to make it this year, but we're going to keep fighting for that in the future. I also work with the Virginia Tribes. I'm very proud of. I got an award from them during session. They had a little event, and I was very honored to be able to be like the legislator of the year, which was exciting. But I put in a bill that has passed the House 90-6, which will allow the tribes to apply for Virginia Community Flood Preparedness Funds. A lot of our tribes are located. You guys don't need to clap there. A lot of the tribes are located down in the Tidewater area, and there's a lot of flooding issues. I also have worked with I'm the chair of a committee that's going through the code and updating the entire code to fix the old language dealing with our Virginia tribes. A lot of it you don't want to even hear about it, but some of it's just needs to be consistent, and also to recognize their sovereignty as their own nations, and they have their own citizens and everything. So that looks like it's going to pass. And I think there's a Senate version of that too that's coming across. The litter tax study, every year you guys hear me talk about trying to update the litter tax. The litter tax has been around since the 70s, and it's $10 a year for a retail outlet. So it's too small to be really effective at all. And most, if you have a $10 tax, you forget to even pay it, right? But that money is still very valuable, and Fairfax County gets the largest amount. I think it's something like $600,000, and they use that very wisely to clean up the creeks, and also, Senator Serval and I do the creek cleanup, Little Honey Creek, and I think a lot of we get the bags and the gloves come from that litter tax money. But when that litter tax was passed many years ago, it didn't include a lot of the litter that's around today, because no one thought water would be bottled, and so the water is exempt, bottled water. So really the only litter that's really being charged for is if it's sodas and beer cans and things like that. So we need a tax, I think, the goal is not to have anybody have to pay it, because we're going to have a tax that disincentivizes single-use plastics. That's the biggest problem. It's very difficult to recycle. And if you're using aluminum, that shouldn't be taxed, because aluminum is 95% recycled. So we want to, those are the kinds of things we can do with the right thing. We've also got the Baby Food Protection Act that will prohibit the sale of baby food products containing toxic heavy metals. And that, I think that would already be the law, but we got to do that. So also my other big issues, along with the senator, we both the labor liaisons for our caucuses, and I've been standing up for workers. I've got 3 labor bills. One is working with the firefighters to expand their workers' compensation benefits related to PTSD. A lot of them, when you see somebody die in fire, it can be devastating to you too, and sometimes you don't even realize it. Maybe it'll manifest itself months or even years later, and so we need to give them some support there. Another is the repetitive stress with the Virginia Workers' Compensation Act. We're the only state that doesn't include those injuries in our workers' compensation system. So if you're working, in a factory or some kind of a job where you're doing the same work all the time and you get injuries from that, you're not covered in Virginia. Every other state covers you. So it's time for us to get that done. And then I'll just go right quickly to the key budget amendments. And the senator and I have been working on with the villages. I don't know how many of you are Mount Vernon Home members. Anybody here? There's a couple. There you are. I was on the board many years ago, and it's a great organization. And the idea is, and I remember having my parents living with me before they passed away, it's great to be able to live in your home and not have to go into a nursing home or congregate care or anything like that in as much as possible. And Mount Vernon Home has that, really helps to keep people at home. And that's where you're used. That's where everything is. That's what you're used to. And when you're older, it's the best place to be if you can afford it and you can handle it, and you've got a group like Mount Vernon Home to protect you. So we've got. I think I'm not supposed to reveal anything of the budget until tomorrow, but there is money. We got some money. We didn't get everything. I know it's being recorded, so. But anyway, we are all sworn to secrecy. But So we've also got amendments to help the George Mason universities. They have a backlog of critical deferred maintenance. Here's an important one. Last year I got it in the budget, and I'm going to get it in the budget again. Last year the governor's he vetoed it, and that was $5 million for manufactured home communities to help them to stay in their home and to be able to tap that money to be able to purchase help purchase, because $5 million is not going to purchase a mobile home park, but it can leverage other resources and work with Fairfax County, for example, to save parks. The governor vetoed it last year, but we were able to override it, I think it was in the negotiations we got it back in, but then he stripped it out again, so it's out of the budget. So this is not actually new money, this is money that was already in the budget, so I have language amendment to get it back in. So hopefully we can get that in, because we have 5 parks here in Mount Vernon, and I would hate to see those parks be developed into something different when people have lived there for 10, 20, 30 years. And this is just an opportunity to help them to save their parks. We've got a lot of other, I had that same language to help the survivor, the U.S. Capitol Police that the Senator mentioned. $40 million in the budget for Virginia's electric rebate program. We created an electric rebate program for electric vehicles, and we didn't put any money in it. And so this is $40 million. Obviously, that's aspirational. If we get $4 million, I think that would be helpful. But I think it's time to do that, to help move it, to get more, to help buy rebates. It's really a problem, because when you go to if you go to the dealership right now, you look and you think there's a rebate program, but there's no money in it. And so a lot of these the salesmen are saying, well, there's no money. They're trying to explain Virginia law to people who are trying to purchase. It's really problematic. So we've got to get some support there. And then I've got a lot of money in for to assist state and local law enforcement agencies with grants to one of the things that's happening in the federal government is the law just passed that you can no longer, and it's a good law, you can no longer use Chinese drones in the U.S. And I think it's over a period of time. And so that means we have a lot of Chinese-made drones in Virginia. So this would help local government, state police to replace their drones over a period of time with U.S.-made, hopefully, or allies of ours. But that has $7.5 million in there. So hopefully we'll get some of that, and we'll be able to help some. Because some of these, I think they have a 3 to 5 year lifespan. And so as they come up, we'll be able to replace them. And then I told you about the gambling treatment program. And so anyway, there's a lot going on. It's a busy time. I'm on appropriations, ag, general laws, and privileges and elections. I think I'm on 16 committees and subcommittees. So it's very busy, and trying to do your own legislation. That's why a lot of the legislation you see that I have are in those 4 committees. So I don't try to do something that's in transportation, for example, or education, because if I go over there with my bill, I'll miss the votes that I need to be, at the dais voting here in this committee, because when you only have 51 out of 100 delegates, you can't lose a vote in any subcommittee or committee. So thank you very much, and I'll pass the mic on to my colleague.
Good morning or afternoon. I'm Mark Sickles from the now numbered 17th district. We have, this is the 3rd year in the new arrangement in the court group for our districts, and my district is along Route 1 as you drive south from 95 until you go up the hill, and then the line between Paul and I is South Kings Highway all the way down until we get to Hayfield, and I keep going a little bit, but I used to have 5 precincts in Lorden in Mount Vernon district, but now I only have 2, which is the very active Montebello community. I don't know if there's anyone from Montebello here. And the precinct right north of the one Montebello's in, it's really small geographically, but densely packed Grosvenor precinct. Anyway, so I really enjoy working with these guys. You're having us here you've heard this, the busiest time of the year. General Assembly session goes in 2 crescendos. You get up to this point right here at crossover, and then when crossover passes, there'll be some parties that night and do things, and then you start back over and going over to take your bill to see Senator Surville. Now, we work in the same building, but I had not seen him all week until I walked into this room today, which I guess is a good thing. But, so that's how busy we are. It's a crazy time. I don't know any business that would operate like this, but anyway, I have been on the Health and Human Services Committee since I got there 21 years ago, and on the Privilege Selection Committee, which is the oldest committee in the General Assembly. And Paul talked a lot about what we're doing in P&E. In Health and Human Services, I've got 4 terrific subcommittee chairs that deal with behavioral health, social services, just health generally, and health professions. We have a lot of fights in health professions between the scopes of practice for the various medical things. So I'm up to my eyeballs in that stuff. But since 2014, I've been on the Appropriations Committee, and since 2018, I've been on the conference on the budget between the Senate and the House. And once you become a conferee on the budget, you have to really mess up to get taken off. So I guess I haven't messed up yet. And finally, I'm on the Rules Committee. So Paul mentioned our constitutional amendments. We passed all 3 of those earlier, and then we lost the election in 21. And so our Republican friends didn't like any of them, so they went away. So we had to start at the beginning again. You know, it's a 2.5 year project, and we hope to get all 3 of these to you. I think these are 70 or 80% items on the ballot on November 26th. So if we stay on schedule, the House of Delegates maintains Democratic control this fall, they'll be on your ballot for sure in November 2026. I mentioned data centers. It is a big issue. I have a data center in my district. People are surprised, what was that, Mark? And it was not controversial. It went through the Franconia district planning process, and now you all will know what it is, because when you're on Loisdale Road, you know where Fairfax County Parkway goes through, and on Loisdale Road crosses, there's the Embassy Suites is there. So on the other side of Loisdale, you'll see this tall warehouse-looking building, and that is Amazon Web Services data center going up there. Customers are probably the Defense Department there, since NGA is across the street, Army Intelligence there, Army Cyber Command is nearby. So that's probably, AWS is a huge defense contractor. So I guess that's good news, because there's been a backlash to the huge growth of data centers in the big farms. And so now, for them to succeed, and if you have one of these things, you're guilty. We need this. We're saving all of our information in the cloud these days. That's what a data center does. And we're doing more and more work like that, and artificial intelligence coming on board. So there's a demand for these things, but everything's going to have to be more carefully planned in the future. Dan Stork and his colleagues passed an ordinance to try to control how it's done in Fairfax, and I think every locality is going to have to do that. We're trying to see if there's any holes in it. One of the holes that I'm chair of the Joint Legislative Audit Review Commission, I didn't mention that, but we had a study of data centers. A lot of people refer to it. One of the recommendations I'm carrying as legislation, and that is, since we're not probably going to have that many big farms like we have when you drive into Loudoun County, a lot of rural counties that are near us, but maybe not defined as ex-urban, like Louisa, Orange, Spotsylvania, they have industrial parks, and they want these things because they don't create traffic. There's only 50 employees in there. The construction jobs are, they're all good union construction jobs. The electricians love these things because they've given them the best. Their industry or their trade has grown a lot because of it. But they're just going to have to be more careful, and their land use process is going to have to be more precise, and they're going to put them in places where people can't see them as much, even though they look not much different than a warehouse. So anyway, that's going to be a lot of fights in the future. I'm actually carrying, we didn't coordinate on this, but I'm actually carrying a similar bill on our artificial intelligence disclosure bill for campaigns, so that if somebody puts my face on, I don't know, someone who's your most evil person, and says it's me, they have to disclose that they did that, who did that, and so maybe we'll be in conference together to work out any differences on that bill. I spent a lot of time the last couple of weeks working on nursing home regulation. We have a record number of complaints about our nursing home industry in Virginia, and our Department of Health is understaffed, and they're running around chasing these complaints down everywhere. And we don't have a law now that provides interim sanctions that are not killer sanctions. Like right now, you can shut a nursing home down. Excuse me, someone's calling me.
It's the governor.
You can give the death penalty, but we need in between sanctions, and the federal government has a new regulation out, the Center for Medicaid and Medicaid Services, that we help fund our nursing homes. We pay half, they pay half. Dr. Oz is taking over their side. We're gonna see how that goes, but they have a new regulation out that requires more individual staffing per patient direct care per day, and the industry's fighting that. And one of their best arguments to fight it is kind of legitimate. We don't pay enough. So to do what they want us to do, they say we don't pay enough. You pay more, we can meet these standards. So they're in court over that, but then we're going to do something here in Virginia right now. On the budget, which comes out tomorrow at 1:30, I have an amendment that I think is going to be successful to double the size of Virginia Tech's medical school. I have some language in there to start the process of us replacing the Northern Virginia Mental Health Institute over in Maryfield. That is our psychiatric hospital, state psychiatric hospital for this part of the state. It's being used for people from all over the state because, ironically, we have more mental health and behavioral health services in our area, and we keep people out of the hospital. But it's serving more as a acute care hospital than it should. And we do have forensic patients in there, and not guilty by reason of insanity. They're going to be there for a long time. But we also have beds that are open, even though there's only 134, and we're serving people from all over the state and bringing people here. It is an antique building. It's way out of code. It's unsafe for the people who work in it. And so I have the start of planning to replace that, and we'll be looking for sites to put it. Hopefully we can keep it in that same area. Got a few other things on crisis response and trying to meet the governor's very aggressive, and I take my hat off to him for this. He, in his budget last year, proposed 3,440 new disability waivers. That's a part of Medicaid. The federal government pays half, we pay half, and it's expensive to put these in place. But so that's a very aggressive target, and we're not getting there without more help for our local CSB. So the state can distribute the waiver authority to around the state, but our local CSB, Community Services Board, has to be the one that implements it. And so we're going to send them some more money to help them do that. So I think, and there's a lot of other things, but you've heard a lot from my colleagues, and I am here to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Yeah, and before we get into the questions really quick, I just want to present this commending resolution that we passed a couple of years ago for Pinewood Lake. Sal, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Come on up, Sal.
Yes, sir.
So, Pinewood Lake is one of the sort of larger townhome communities on the US 1 corridor. I know Doug Krizik and I have knocked a lot of doors down there, talking about some stormwater pond issues. It's one of the better organized communities in the yeah. Yeah. Second oldest HOA in the Commonwealth?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, that's old. And they had their 50th anniversary the other day, and I wouldn't want to present this resolution to them, congratulate them on being such a good community and running in our community for 50 years. So, on behalf of the Senate, myself, Doug Prezek, Doug Sickles, who represents you but cares about you, helps you out.
I care a lot.
Yeah.
And you should get out here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to give you this committee resolution. You guys can hang in your clubhouse for us. So here you go. So. All right, so what we're mainly here for is your questions. As Paul said, we're here for Mount Vernon area constituents. First, looking at those questions out of the way. Delegate Sickles and I actually have another town hall at 12. Right? Oh, you're coming over too? Okay, well, we're having another one at 12 o'clock in Franconia, so we gotta get done soon. So, Gina, you want to go first? Maria, I'm sorry, Maria. Yeah, so just everybody can hear that. Yeah, there's legislation that's introduced in the House of Delegates to expand the no talking zone at polling places from 40 feet to 100 feet. I think it's being carried by Delegate Reed out of Loudon. I don't know what this. I know it's coming over. Yeah.
So I'm just going to say that I represent a whole bunch of people that will object to that. And
It's
really
too-
would
it's too far away.
appreciate it. I mean, we wouldn't be able to fit in some a lot of our places. So it's kind of crazy.
I think it was more about the safety, and the way we were sold on it was that that you would be an area where you couldn't carry a weapon, so it would expand to 200 feet. I don't know. So
That's not how it's written, though.
okay, yeah. So here's
Yeah, well, it was introduced at 150 feet, and then the committee scoped it back to 100 feet. Maybe that's too far. We got a lot of time left to work on this, so maybe a more appropriate distance would be
40
established.
feet might be more appropriate.
Okay, I heard you.
Yeah, I hear you. It's out loud, they got a lot more room, so, I don't think it's a great idea, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello everyone, my name is William and I attend the Mount Vernon High School STEP Job Internship Program, and I'm about to graduate and I want a job. I am asking you to support the Medicaid work proposal. This proposal allows me to earn real money when I work hard and not lose any services through a Medicaid waiver that helps me. The proposal is to change Medicaid works. It currently prevents people with a developmental disability Medicaid waiver and most people with developmental disability from entering. It would expand access by raising income limits. This would allow people with disabilities to get out of poverty. Thank you.
I think we have that bill that bill has passed through our committee, so it has a little ways to go, but thanks for telling us about this. It's really, really important.
Yes.
This is directed to Senator Surville. My late mother often said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. With that in mind, in December 2016, the MGM Casino opened in National Harbor. Then in 2022, the prospect of a new casino in Dumfries was debated. At that time, you said, quote, "What has always bothered me is the $350 million going across the bridge every year," referring to the MGM Casino. The Rose Casino opened in Dumfries last October and features 1,650 slot machines. I know that according to Virginia law, 70% of the taxes levied on a casino go to Richmond. Only 30% stays here. In a 2014 article, the New York Times reported on a study that concluded that casinos disproportionately attract the poorer among us and use various techniques to attract that economic class. One such technique is to locate a casino within 10 miles of those people and to include numerous slot machines that accept low denominations to play. Apparently supporting the Rose Casino wasn't good enough for you. Now you are supporting letting Fairfax County voters decide whether to locate yet another casino at Tyson's Corner. In support of your bill, you said, quote, "I want to see that $300 million come back to Virginia and pay for schools in Fairfax County and Virginia." Then you said this, quote, "If we had other revenue sources like this, the Board of Supervisors wouldn't be as forced to raise taxes on Fairfax County homeowners and renters and businesses as much," unquote. I was taught to believe that Democrats were the champions of the poor, not their enemies. Apparently that has changed, but there is a solution. We have 40 senators in Virginia. You are the majority leader, the one who controls what gets considered on the Senate floor. Delegate Sickles pointed that out this morning, as he said he brought his bills to you to be considered. We send our taxes to Richmond, and out of every dollar, we only receive back 25 cents. You can dispute the number, but whatever it is, it needs to increase. Supervisor Stork will say that 2 or 3 more cents per dollar will solve a lot of our financial problems. We don't need a casino that soaks the poor. We need a senator capable and willing to use his power to get back for us, the economic engine of Virginia, more of what we send to Richmond. Please tell the senators you control that if they want their bills to be considered by the Senate, they will have to vote to increase the formula that decides how much money we receive from Richmond. Please get to work. And circling back to my late mother, the wrong of the MGM casino doesn't justify the wrong of a casino in Tyson's Corner.
Hi Jay, it's always good to see you. Yeah, Jay and I have been going back and forth for years because you were not from Mount Vernon. So I don't know where to start with all that. So first of all, I just want to make clear, please don't tell Senator Lucas I control her. I don't think she'll react very well to that. But in the Virginia Senate, the majority leader does not control what goes to the floor. The committee chairs do. And each committee, I think we have 11 committee chairs, and they decide what goes out there. Well, they don't decide; their committees decide what goes out. But we don't operate like they do in other states.
I was being funny. Every bill we have goes to all the senators.
Yeah, and we don't operate like the United States Senate or other chambers. That's not how we do it in our chamber. And the other thing I want to say before getting to all of it is this 21 cents on the dollar myth is really getting old because it's completely false. And the analysis that the Board of Supervisors uses to come up with that number basically looks at how much money goes through their budget, which is mainly school money. And it's true that out of all the money that goes to Richmond, they get to spend about 21 cents of it that comes back. But what that number does not include is all the money that pays for Medicaid. Fairfax Hospital has the highest number of Medicaid births in the entire Commonwealth. There's hundreds of millions of dollars of Medicaid money that goes there. Mount Vernon Hospital, right across the street. The state funds our entire civil and criminal justice system, which is not included in their budget. It doesn't include the parole system. It doesn't include all the people from Fairfax who are incarcerated downstate. It doesn't include all the money that pays for your children to go to UVA or JMU or Tech. It doesn't include our state parks. It doesn't include environmental enforcement. It doesn't include all kinds of things. If you look at the actual total, it's closer to probably 70 to 75 cents for every dollar. And the reason that we are a net giver is because Northern Virginia is extraordinarily wealthy compared to the rest of the Commonwealth. And that's how it works in many states. And also, by the way, the seat of government's in Richmond. I don't think anybody would want to put the seat of government in Northern Virginia because it would cost you a whole lot more for real estate and salaries if you had it up here. So, there's reasons for it, but that number drives me crazy. On the local composite index, which is what Jay's referring to on the school funding formula, the school funding formula is probably one of the most progressive aspects of state government that we have. Basically, the more money you have, the more real estate you have to tax, and the more income you have, the less money you get in support from school funding. And it's not a Democrat or Republican thing. In a lot of ways, it's not even a regional thing. Prince William County gets about 50% of their school money from the state. Fairfax is closer to 40%. You go down to Tazewell, Buchanan, North Carolina border, they're getting 80% of the money for their school system from the state because their average family income is about $40,000 a year. Here it's about $140,000. And so that's how we balance out things under court order, by the way, from the 1970s to make sure we have a functional school system. And that formula doesn't change. And nobody's ever articulated to me which poor counties in the state we're gonna take money from to bring it back to the wealthiest counties in the state. It isn't gonna happen politically. The votes aren't there. It isn't a thing. There are other ways to fund our schools, like funding ESOL or funding at-risk kids or at-risk populations, or we have another, that special funding streams that only go to NOVA. That's how we balance that out. On the casino piece, first of all, it's a 1.5 million square foot entertainment complex. 5% of its square footage will be dedicated to gaming. 5% out of 1.5 million square feet. Most of it's probably dedicated to the conference center. It's gonna be a conference center for about between 4,000 to 5,000 people. It's gonna be a 6,000 person entertainment venue, like they have across the river, or you can see Bruno Mars or whoever if you're into that. It's got a hotel. Our county is now larger than 8 states. We don't have a single place you can have a conference, which makes zero sense to me. If you ever go to a conference, you're going to Arlington or you're going to DC, you're not going to Fairfax. In terms of the history you recited, when MGM was announced in, 2015-16, they bragged about how much money they were going to make out of Virginia. And the time they said it was about $150 million a year. It's turned into about $300 million a year. Our money goes over that bridge into Maryland to pay for Maryland schools and PG County schools every single year. MGM announced last year that that casino is their #1 performing asset outside of Las Vegas, and it's because of Virginia. We are surrounded by that. We have Charlestown Slots right across the border in Harpers Ferry. There's casinos in North Carolina. There's casinos in Tennessee. North Carolina's not. There's some Indian casinos down there. Indian casinos down there. Yeah. But we're having our pockets picked by other areas, and people are gambling, as you heard Doug Creasy talk about. And Doug Sickles carried the sports gaming bill, or a version of, I can't really carry the original one or the one to fix it, but okay. We have sports gaming. We have other kinds of gaming that already exist in the Commonwealth. People are going to gamble. They're going to go to do it. And from my perspective, we need to capture that activity and tax it, just like we should with cannabis or other things. Now, in terms of the money, Fairfax County is currently undergoing a commercial property implosion. Fairfax County, for the last 70 years, before Dan Stork ever got elected, started overzoning for commercial and underzoning for housing. In other words, they zoned for more jobs than houses. They did that because they wanted the big office buildings to get the tax revenue out of it, because they don't require any services. And they pushed all the demand for services, houses, out to Stafford, Prince William, Loudoun, etc., where every other kid has a house in it, right? So you get all the money, but you don't get any of the demand for services. The consequence of that is somebody has to, by the way, build the roads, which is you all. We have to fund the infrastructure to get people back and forth over long distances, which makes roads really expensive. But the other consequence, if you get over-reliant on commercial, if commercial crashes, you're screwed, right? We just had a pandemic, and now the buildings in Tysons have a 15% vacancy rate, and they're 60% vacant, which is why you see one building going up for foreclosure every month. Commercial property valuations have gone down by about 80% on some buildings. What does that mean? Everybody else is getting taxed because of that. Fairfax County now has the highest real estate tax of any county in Northern Virginia, except for Falls Church and Manassas Park, each of which have about 10,000 people in it. Okay? We have $1.13 per 100. You heard Doug Sickles talk a minute ago about Loudoun, who has the data centers. Their property tax rate is 30% lower. 30% lower than Fairfax County. If you have a house that's assessed at $1 million, that's $3,000 a year. Okay? If you live in a house that's $600,000, then it's about, that 30% difference is, probably about $1,500, something like that a year. Okay? The county has been begging us, ever since I was elected 16 years ago, to diversify their revenue sources. Every year, it's their #1 thing in their package: diversify our revenue sources, give us more tools to raise revenue. That's why you're seeing meals tax this year, probably going to be enacted very shortly, and this entertainment district is part of it. What would an entertainment district generate? Does $1 billion like MGM? If it does $1 billion like MGM, it would generate $190 million a year for the state for school construction. That's $2 billion per decade for school construction, which is double what we currently generate from our current casino system. It would generate $75 million a year if we don't change the tax structure, the 70-30 split that you talked about. $75 million a year for the county. And that's before you count meals taxes, admissions taxes, hotel taxes, and real estate taxes. Every $1 billion that thing's assessed, that's another $150 million of real estate taxes. So an entertainment district like this would generate probably over $200 million a year in net revenue for the county, which is equal to about 7 cents per hundred on your real estate tax dollar. Okay, so if you want to talk about relieving pressure on real estate taxes, if you want to talk about relieving pressure, well, the people I represent don't have as much money as people in other parts of the county in a lot of ways. Okay? And people, by the way, the real estate tax is also paid by renters. Like people who live in apartments, a big part of their rent is real estate taxes. And every time their taxes go up, the rent goes up. Right? This county cannot continue to have the highest real estate tax in all of Northern Virginia. We're not going to continue to attract the jobs and the businesses and development if we have the highest real estate tax for everybody. If we're not even, we're 30% higher than Loudoun. Right? So that's in terms of the money side. In terms of the some other pieces of this, I just want to point out that this would also create 5,000 permanent union jobs. This is the number one priority for labor this session. It's the number one priority for it's the number two priority for statewide labor, number one priority for Nova labor. This creates 5,000 jobs that allow people who don't have college degrees, who work in this county, to actually live in the county. Which right now there's not a lot of opportunities like that, and I'm not going to let people shut up. You're going to shut up. We're going to end this town hall. We're gonna have a town hall where people are respectful to each other. And so those are some of the reasons that I'm carrying it. I'll tell you that the constituent survey I have shows about 60-40 support. If I delete all the people from Vienna that answered my question, my survey. The polling that we've done shows about 67% support countywide. It doesn't show that support in McLean or Vienna, but on the countywide basis, that's what it shows. And so, this is a way for us to diversify revenue. The last thing I'll say is I want to remind everybody, this is not a vote for a casino. It is a vote for a referendum. And if everybody thinks they have strong arguments, take it to the voters. And let the voters decide whether they want it or not. If they don't want it, they don't have to have it. That's their decision. So this is about democracy. It's the way we do it in every other jurisdiction in the state is we do these referenda. It's been rejected in Petersburg and Manassas Park. They don't want it in Fairfax. It's been rejected in Richmond and Manassas Park. If they want to reject it in Fairfax, they can reject it. Just put it on the ballot. See what happens. So that's, Jay, my response. So happy to take any other questions. We need other people who are from the district first before we get to people in casino shirts, because I assume you guys, unless you're a district person in a casino shirt, which I doubt. Go ahead.
So there was a recent state AG memo put out about for VCU hospitals, UK hospitals concerning transgender health services, preventing them, following up with Trump administration's executive order about preventing it from people who are under the age of 19. That's largely a budgetary issue for the federal government not to provide funds for these hospitals. Has there been any consideration for the state to possibly kick in those funds, or is this even a legal proposition that the state agency is actually correct on, or is it something that just going to be entirely ignored?
That's a great question. It's certainly very bothersome to me, and the language used in the Attorney General's order the other day was disgusting. I think this will be settled in the courthouse. So there's no lawsuit that I know of yet, but we can't do anything in the budget right now. We are stopped from going forward, and the governor would veto anything we did anyway to try to overturn it. They are just they want parental rights until it comes to the issues they don't like. I mean, they've taken away parental rights big time in this executive order. I mean, there's no child with gender dysphoria who's not getting treated without their parents' consent and advice and counseling. So it's really disturbing.
Yeah, that whole issue is going to get resolved by the courts. The Attorney General has a history of, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've now lost something like 4 or 5 different times when he's given legal advice. For some reason, he thinks that an executive order by the president has some binding effect on Virginia state hospitals. I didn't know the president was in charge of our hospitals at VCU, UVA. But our AG often gives political advice, not legal advice. For whatever it's worth, one of the first things he did when he came in was he fired the general counsel of UVA Hospital, Harvard Law educated woman who'd been there 20 years, career person, because he wanted her to take over the litigation involving masking and vaccines that the employees had filed. And he also replaced the lead private counsel in that litigation on behalf of you all, Commonwealth, with a guy who's married to a conservative Republican state delegate to be lead lawyer. So he tends to politicize litigation all the time. And this is just another piece of it. He's auditioning for his re-election for Attorney General, I think. And it's disappointing that he clouds his legal judgment with his political judgment. But that whole issue is one, you're probably going to see some injunctions drop on what President Trump said, and you'll get, we'll find out in the courts what the answer is. But basically, the Attorney General said our state hospitals are not allowed to provide gender-affirming care anymore to children, even when their parents say that that's what they've decided they want to do for their child, and their child agrees with it. So that's basically what has happened. I guess the courts will stop it. So what are the questions we have in the district? And Kate?
And I'll note that, as you mentioned, it's 19 and under. 18 and 19-year-olds are adults. They should be able to do their own care right here. Who's next? Kate.
My question, Director Scott, about the election transparency reform. Can you go to that a little bit more? Because I like what I heard. Can you hear me now? Oh, I wasn't pointing at it, sorry. Usually I'm loud enough. About the election reform and the election transparency as far as contributions and everything.
Okay, so two of us are on privileges and elections, which is, I think, one of the oldest committees. Goes back to George Washington was in the House of Burgesses. He chaired that committee. We've got a number of bills that are going through, including the ones we mentioned on election campaign finance reform, and it's really for the first time. And I credit our chair, Sia Price, where's she from, Norfolk? She's done Newport News. She's done a very good job of running that committee and making sure we get. But the one that the two that I mentioned, and then they were working on the AI, artificial intelligence issue, is the situation with the portal, so that everything is transparent. Right now, there is a nonprofit called VPAP, and I don't know if you all know about VPAP, and you can look up a lot of material on VPAP that gives you. So if you do vpap.org, you can find out who donates to us, how much money we've in our campaign, and things like that. But it's very difficult to aggregate information. You can't put it into your own Excel spreadsheet, or you can't mess around with it. I'm not really good at describing this because I'm not a math guy or an Excel guy, but it also, who knows how long VPAP will be around. I mean, it's a nonprofit. You really shouldn't be leaving that to the nonprofits. It should be a government responsibility. And it's a bipartisan vote. You have all of the members on both sides of the aisle have supported it this time. So it looks, I feel very confident that when it goes over to the Senate, that will pass. So that's really, it's everything, including penalties, every kind of, all the filings, ethics reports, everything would be there. And be one stop, and then people can then link it to your own, like I put it on my website, so you could just go straight to this site and get all the information. I think that is the least we can do. The second one is, of course, is making sure that that campaign money is used for campaigns only. And there's a lot of, and a lot of the problem, and has been historically, that we have a number of delegates and senators who are very low income, and they don't. It's, we get paid $17,600 per year, and so it's difficult to live on that, as you can imagine. And I, luckily for me, I have another job, and so do these guys. But for a lot of people, especially some of the younger and some of the retired folks too, that are members, that has always been, they've always used their campaign money for dry cleaning and meals and things like that. Otherwise, they couldn't really afford to be in the General Assembly. We do need to professionalize the General Assembly at some point. We're in there all the time now. Last year, I went down every single week until I had my knee replaced in late September, and I was down there every single week until my knee replacement, which was my only excuse to miss a few meetings down there. But it was, when you're in the majority and you have a little seniority, you get put on every commission and committee. And you heard he's the chair of JLARC, and they meet during this off session. I'm on the 70th Commission, and that's going to be a big deal next year, 2026. Will be our 250th anniversary of our nation's founding, so that's exciting. Bigger than the bicentennial for all of you that remember 1976. And so there's just a lot of things going on, but we've got to think about a pay increase for the future, and it would have to take place in the future. And I think one of the things we could look at is getting a nonpartisan committee of experts and financial people to figure it out and look at what other states are doing, that kind of thing. But that's and then the other one that Dave mentioned, and I think I'm trying to remember. I know there's at least one or two others as well that I voted for that are coming across. But this AI thing is really kind of a scary issue because right now you could superimpose Elon Musk on Delegate Sickles, for example, but seriously, at least, I mean, this would be constitutional because remember, it's free speech, but you can't, this would just say, hey, this was created by artificial intelligence. It would just be a notification. So you could still do it, but at least there'd be a notification. I think that goes a long way, but maybe Delegate Sickles.
I just wanted to mention, if you look at my bill 2670, HB 2670, what it's trying to do is make sure that every organization's 501c4, 5 and 6 that participate in the electioneering process to at least 40% or more. They have to, if they don't do that, they have to sign we do not use 40% of our money. They would have to follow the same disclosure rules and deadlines that we have to follow. So right now, there's a lot of money in politics, and I think you inferred this. That is not. It's being donated by people we don't know who it is. There's no disclosure of who the donors are, and that I was trying to fix. Something we've been talking about for a while, but the issue is getting worse. But my bill is probably not going to make it. So it's a step, and I think considering it this year, as far as it got, is probably good, but I don't think it's going to pass.
Let me just say, the C4 issue is really complicated. It's extraordinarily complicated. The big problem is Citizens United, and we need to repeal Citizens United. My grandparents moved to this county in 1936, and they were not, shall we say, welcome, being Jews from Brooklyn, much less progressive Jews, and in a county of 35,000 people. And the Democratic Party wouldn't have nothing to do with them, so they joined the NAACP during the fights to desegregate our schools here. And if you go back, and a lot of people don't remember the history, or haven't studied it in a long time, but back after Brown v. Board, during massive resistance, the General Assembly set up a committee to actually investigate the NAACP and try to obtain their membership list to try to undo their funding. And the U.S. Supreme Court held that you couldn't get into the funders of C4s back then. But there's been some other litigation since then. But trying to balance those issues out with the stuff that's going on today is extraordinarily complicated legally and politically, and that's something we need to. I agree with Mark. The dark money thing is a huge problem. But trying to find a solution, given the way the Supreme Court has set up the table for us, is really hard. The other thing is on the personal use thing. We had a joint subcommittee that actually figured that out 4 years ago, 5 years, pre-pandemic, I think, where we actually came up with the bill. We're actually passing almost the identical bill this year, but it's taken that long to get consensus within our majorities to actually do it. But the personal use thing, yeah, some people think child care ought to be something that campaigns ought to be able to cover. We have a lot more working mothers than when I started. We didn't have any when I started, and now there's a bunch.
We have a majority woman.
Yeah, we do. We have a majority female caucus too. Or actually, we're 50-50, I think. No, well, I think we're 11-10, majority female, I think. But in any event, the personal use thing is going to finally pass. We're one of the only states in America that doesn't have a ban on personal use of campaign funds, and we're basically just incorporating federal law. So a lot of people were concerned about how to figure out if you had a slice of pizza at a campaign event, whether you were committing a misdemeanor because you bought pizza for your volunteers or whatever. And so, anyways, or like if we had campaign T-shirts, whether we could wear our own T-shirt, whether that was a violation of personal use. And anyways, all that straightened out. And I think we're actually going to pass it this year. Knock on wood. So, anyways, what other questions do we got over here? And there's some more constituents I see. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is actually for you, Senator Serval. Recently, you voted against, I guess, the no. Okay, now I got my phone.
Hi, this is for Senator Serval. Recently, you voted to reject about half a dozen candidates that the governor had put forward on Board of Visitors for George Mason and UVA. They seem like well-qualified candidates. They've been in the seat for a while. You and I must have been a Democrat in the Senate, voted against them. Can you explain your rationale?
And sorry, what's your name again?
Yeah, Andy Cole.
Andy Cole. These guys are about to see the same list, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. Your P&E committee added 5 more names to the list yesterday, I think, right? Yeah, so the House took 5 more names off. So it's a total of now, I think, 16 or something, 17. 14? Okay, 14. Yeah, this is a dance we do every year. When I think the governor has the right to appoint, I think, about 4,000 people per governor term to different boards and commissions. Some commissions are more important than others. Every year, people get taken off, and well, especially if there's a partisan split between the legislature and the governor's mansion, either one of the chambers, the tradition, at least in my caucus, is we try not to get into personalities and the problems of people, because a lot of times these people don't have the ability to defend themselves in our chamber when we're talking about it or otherwise. And most of these people are professionals; they got reputations, and so we try not to talk about it. The statement that we gave on the floor was that these people's backgrounds and service in their history is inconsistent with the values and the level of judgment that we expect out of somebody to serve on the various boards they're on. And that's where I've left it. I've had numerous papers try to contact me about it, and I've explained to them the same thing. I'll just point out, though, that I think the governor had 900 nominations this year, and I think we rejected something like 0.6% of whatever it was, like 11, whatever it is, 14 out of 900. About 3 years ago, the House Republicans, back when these guys were in the minority, came within about 20 minutes of nuking about 900 nominations that Governor Northam made as he was leaving office. And we ended up catching them in the act. We didn't realize there was a deadline that was about to happen. We didn't realize it was happening until that 10 minutes before we were adjourning, and then we realized it, shut everything down, made them come to the table. But they actually took, I want to say, about 12 people off some very important boards, and they took off Northam nominees and replaced them with Youngkin nominees, which meant that the partisan flip on those boards happened about a year earlier than otherwise, which is not how our system is supposed to work. And so the governor got his Board of Education a year earlier, he got his Air Board, water board, all that stuff a year earlier, which was a real problem. That was the most partisan use of that power I've ever seen the legislature use. But I'll just say in the past, one of the ones that sticks out to me is about 6 years ago, Governor Northam nominated Carlos Del Toro to be on the Mary Washington Board of Visitors. And my colleagues on the other side took him off the Mary Washington Board of Visitors with no discussion. We asked, what's his problem? They wouldn't say. If anybody knows who Carlos Del Toro is? Yeah, he wasn't Secretary of the Navy until about 2 weeks ago. But he lives in Mount Vernon. He's my constituent. But apparently he wasn't good enough for the Mary Washington Board of Visitors. He could have run the entire Navy and the Marines. So this is not something that's unusual. It happens, and there's often a lot of different reasons about why it happens, and I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to talk a little further offline about it, but we try not to get into a public spat about the reasons, because the people can't really respond, and their reputations are affected, so we try to keep quiet about it. I don't know if you guys want to talk about yours at all, or I don't know anything about your 5. I guess not. Thanks for the question. I thought Larry, you had one. Yeah. Living Shorelines?
Yes.
All right.
So,
Okay, I got you next.
first of all, I want to thank you very much for the work that you do. You and Paul and all. Okay, I want to thank you all. You've all outlined a lot of great work that I really appreciate that. It's very important. I also want to just thank you for the work that you've done to deal with the Shorelines issue. This year, you sent out a letter to constituents, which I think is very helpful. You also held a meeting with the Water Commission. I So for PFAS, we know that there's cancer, reproductive effects, and other things. The bill basically refers we should be cleaning up our streets, which I absolutely agree with. But at the same time, I don't think we should be not cleaning up if we don't get it cleaned up our street. In the end, though, what we're doing is to replacing a tremendous burden on property owners, constantly so they can no longer afford to live in their home. Decisions that we made for different shorelines, but yet we're saying it's okay to not clean up the effluent that comes out of facilities as PFAS. And I'm trying to understand the balance that goes on here.
PFAS is a living time bomb. It sort of came on the radar in the last 2 or 3 years. We've had a couple different water commission meetings on it now, and it's all over the place. It's PFAS comes out of like cups and stuff in your yard and trash everywhere. And once it's out there, you can't get rid of it. It's a forever chemical. It's also extraordinarily difficult to, it's cancer causing, it's very difficult to get out of water. And the Water Commission we've been talking about it for like 2 years now. Last year we put language in the budget asking it to be studied. The Department of Health came back this year and said that Virginia's gonna have to spend over $1 billion in water system filtration stuff, plus over $100 million a year in annual expenses cleaning it out. And which surprised me, I thought that was low. When I asked Fairfax Water, they told me they were gonna have to spend about $1 billion, just alone in Fairfax. So you're ready to pay your water bill. And the problem is that this stuff it's coming from the environment. We don't know exactly entirely where it's coming from. There's a theory that there might be some upstream polluters in the Occoquan watershed that produce some of it, but still, it's all over the place. It's in Fall Spring out here, Little Honey Creek. It's in Doe Creek. It's everywhere. And I think it's below this bill, I think. I know Senator McPike had a bill too, to try to do more testing so we can identify what the real sources of it are, instead of just paying for the treatment, trying to figure out where it's coming from and try and stop it. There's been some hostility to that because of how expensive it is. And so I know McPike's bill finally passed. Well, he has a budget amendment to expand our PFAS testing capacity. It costs about $3 million a year just to begin the testing process. So that's something we're looking at. One other headache, by the way, is that Maryland has put a moratorium on spreading of biosolids on their farm fields because they were finding that all the sewage that came out of the sewage plants that they treat and then put in the farm fields was full of PFAS. So they were basically spreading PFAS over their farm fields because they're using the stuff that comes out of our toilets. And now that Maryland has a permitting moratorium, all the biosolids companies are now spreading all their stuff in Virginia. And so I've been trying to get a permitting moratorium in Virginia, but the ag community is very hostile to that because we haven't done enough awareness and people think we're anti-farm or whatever. And so I'm trying to do that, but I met with a bunch of watermen last week from Northern Neck who the creeks where they have their oysters are full of PFAS. And this is something that we have to start dealing with as soon as possible. That's all I can tell you on PFAS. Living shorelines is going to be an ongoing conversation. So.
It's in our clothing.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's all over the place. So your hand's been up for a while. And yeah. Make sure you say your name and or maybe your neighborhood, I guess.
My name is Jason Cesari. My question for you is, you talked a lot about the money that casino going to bring in and whatever good stuff about it. Because, we also know that casino we're going to have an increased rate of crime and sex trafficking and family issues.
Yeah.
Do you have any statistics like how much money will go to cover that from the money that I get?
Yeah. Okay. So that's something we've heard a lot about. By the way, I just note that for every $1 billion the casino would do in revenue, it would generate about $8 million of probable gaming from money for the way the current tax is structured. So, Doug Krizak talked about that, but we raise the tax when it comes to your committee. I've heard that thrown around a lot, right? And there's a lot of casinos that are located in areas where there's higher rates of crime. We now have MGM operating It's right across the river, and I can see it from my house. Haven't seen that kind of data at MGM. We have now 3 operating casinos. Okay, great. We have 3 operating casinos in Virginia right now: Portsmouth, Danville, Bristol. Petersburg's going to be under construction soon. I've spoken to the members there. They have seen none of that in their areas. And so this one would be located in a very not low crime area. The operator we're working with is Wynn, which does high-end casinos. They don't do casinos that focus on lower income populations. So I don't see it as a problem. In addition to that, I would say that if the Board of Supervisors are concerned about policing or those other things, that's something we're working out in the zoning process, part of profit. And the casino, we talk about helping to fund law enforcement, or they have security restrictions as part of their security requirements as part of the proffer system when they go to work out the zoning. So all that can be figured out in the zoning process in terms of additional costs to get the operator to cover it. As I said, if you include just the local casino tax referendum plus the real estate tax alone, it's about $228 million a year on $1 billion project. And that doesn't include events taxes, meals taxes, admissions taxes, hotels taxes, that kind of stuff. So,
So what part of that money gonna go back to resolve all the problems?
Well, that,
Like.
the county's gonna get, if the project does $1 billion a year, which is what MGM does, it's at least $250 million a year to the county, right? At least. And then another $180 million a year, $190 million a year to the state. So, if again, what I said is the county could get the developer as part of the proffer process to cover that if they can agree, which they probably would. Alternatively, it's $230 million a year coming out of the project to cover those kinds of staffing
What
costs.
part of that gonna go to resolve the family issues?
Say again?
What part of this $250 million is gonna go to resolve the family issues, the police increase because we're gonna need more law enforcement and all the other stuff?
What I just said is that the developer, as part of the proffer process, would be required to cover the increased policing costs that come with it. So they can make the builder pay for the policing for it. They can make that happen. Alternatively, there's $230 million a year coming out of this project to cover that. And the policing cost is minuscule compared to $230 million. $1 million a year is a lot of cost. Again, we're gonna get constituents first. Ma'am, lady, okay, you go first, and woman in the red coat or sweater back to back.
I'll be honest, I'm not a constituent.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll go with you.
I'm a constituent in Mount Vernon.
Okay, we'll get to you.
Excuse me, we have a local person who would like to ask
Here,
a
I am
question.
the
Okay, we'll get to you. Just give us a second. You're next. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Marty Sanchez-Lowry, and I'm from Mount Vernon. And I want to go back to this, I understand we're doing the casino to try to, as part of this, trying to crawl back some money to the schools. But the 21-cent myth, 21-cent myth that we don't appear to have a political will to crawl back more money for us. Right now, you talked about some deferred streams that you could put in place, and you sort of whispered them. We have a $297 million shortfall for deferred improvements in the schools in Mount Vernon, in Fairfax County. The schools have something like 100 classrooms that are in trailers and have been so for over 10 to 15 years, way beyond the capacity of those trailers to, house students. So the fact that we're a rich county does not preclude us from really having these really ridiculous needs. We have an underserved population, we have special students, and I think we need a little bit more political will to crawl back some of that money that you're talking about, because we do have real needs. So I'd like to have you talk about those streams that you also have in addition.
Yeah, so I think the three of us, I think, and I think I speak for these guys, correct me if I'm wrong. But K through 12 funding is probably the number one funding priority for all of us in the budget, and you're going to find out tomorrow that that's the number one priority in the Senate budget. I think it's probably the number one priority in their budget. We had a study done by Jay Larpers, our independent auditor, a year ago. Doug Sickles chairs the commission, which said we were $7 to $8 billion a year below the national average in terms of our state school spending. Not county, but state level school spending. It said that West Virginia spends 20% more than we do. Kentucky spends 6% more than Virginia does. We put $1.5 billion, $2 billion more in last year, something like that, along with everybody else in the country. And so we're sort of, I'm not sure we made up a lot of ground last year, but remember, 7 to 8 billion below the national average. Our state is the 10th wealthiest state in America. If we were to actually spend relative to our relative wealth, the number's probably closer to 10 or 12 billion dollars behind where we should be relative to what we can afford. Okay, and so all of us are, that's a huge priority for us. What's not a priority for us is putting money in the funding stream where we only get back 40 cents on the dollar, right? And how do we get more money into the system? I mean, we could always, of course, raise taxes, but this community, this county, is a net giver on taxes, right? So does it make sense to raise taxes here when we only get back 70 cents on the dollar and put it through some funding stream where we get back 40? Or does it make sense to raise taxes here and keep a dollar for dollar here in the county? Which is the better way to do it, right? I'm just putting that before you right now, by the way, in terms of this entertainment district discussion we're having. But if it were me, I'd rather have a dollar for dollar stay here instead of the other way. So what we try to do, in terms of the system that we have to deal with, the cards we have to play in Richmond, is we created a new ESOL funding stream last year. There's a funding stream for the at-risk population. Fairfax County's public schools has more free reduced lunch children than something like all but 10 of the 140 school districts in Virginia. There's also something called Cost to Compete, which is a thing that was created about 20 years ago, which is a salary supplement for everybody who's in Plan District 8, which is Prince William, Loudoun, Inn. It's a salary supplement because they recognize their salaries are higher up here. And so historically, we've tried to put more money through those streams to help our end of the state out better. But again, remember, we have to negotiate Northern Virginia, and I'm talking Fairfax. Northern Virginia is only a third of the state. And so we have to fight with 70% of the state for money, and they want it too, right? And so while we have Democratic majorities, North Virginians kind of have a bigger seat at the table and a bigger ability to do these kinds of things. It's hard. It's hard, and we also just basically need more money. Medicaid has been eating us alive. The inflation in the medical system and Medicaid increases have been eating us alive. Medicaid budget probably used to be like half its size 20 years ago than it was today relative to the budget. It's eating everything up. So, and we also, it's very hard for us to get more money in the system. We have a governor who imposes a tax cut every single year, right? We almost had our first vetoed budget in the history of the state because of him last year. So there's a lot of things that make it very difficult for us to get the kind of money we really need to get in the short term. I'm hopeful after the next election, these guys are in the majority afterwards, and we might be able to do a lot more. But the next 12 months are going to be very hard for us, and that's why I think, again, focusing locally is often a way to get much better returns on your taxpayer dollar than it is for us to really push hard at the state level. We used to have a governor who won't even talk about it. So,
I was going to kind of say a little bit about the executive leadership. In order to solve the education structural funding problem we have, we're going to need a governor who runs on that issue and has a plan and comes into Richmond with a plan and enforce, because the governor leadership is so critical. Right now, I mean, the governor thinks we have enough teachers. He thinks that the standards of quality that we have now are adequate. Or he thinks that. I mean, it's on paper, and so it's just a different point of view. He didn't use the public schools for his 4 children. Didn't even use Virginia schools, and so we need someone to take it on as a leadership anything big like this is a major, could be a major change that needs to be done, and to meet the goals of the JLR report is gonna take an executive leadership that we haven't had in a while, so I'm hoping we'll get that next year.
I'll just add, the governor's budget has $40 or $50 million for private schools. So that is taking away from the public schools too. And probably unconstitutional center village. All right, we have up here, let's make sure our constituent with the red vest, who's lived here over 40 years.
Yeah. 3 kids went through and my husband graduated from the old Mount Vernon High School. First of all, I'd like to thank you for what you did for Jay. Okay. There you go. Thank you. I'd like to thank you for the work that you're doing. It's a very complex environment that we're in. I'd like to thank you for the work that JLR did. It's been an issue for 25, 30 years. It goes back to a previous governor who reduced our tax thing and $1 billion out of higher ed in the state of Virginia. So many things that I'm pleased with. I have to say I don't support the casino license. I think it's my vision for Fairfax. I think it's seductive. I think the impact fees will end up being insufficient. I think the taxpayers all over Fairfax County will end up having to deal with the repercussions.
I have a question for Senator Searle. Can you tell us where you got the $1.8 billion gross gaming projection for the Tyson's project? And can you post that on the sourcing on your website or provide it to journalists so they can publish it?
That basically, the MGM casino is doing right now, I think around $900 million they did last year in total revenue. And Tyson's casino would do better than that. And there's been all kinds of, the JLR study did a study of it 6 years ago, and it said that the Fairfax casino would be the most lucrative casino in the state by far amongst all the other 5 sites they were studying. And it said at the time it would be worth at least $150 million a year to the state, I think. And but if you take $1 billion of net casino gaming revenue, I'm not talking overall hotel, everything else, just the gaming revenue, which is, again, MGM's doing 890, 900 a year. You put that through the tax structure we currently have, it nets out to about $190 million a year for the state, and about $75 million a year for the county. The tax is a little complicated because it's not a straight up tax. It's I think it's a 30% tax, and then but it flows based. The first 200,000 is one tax, and the next 200,000, sorry, the first 200 million is one tax, then it goes up between 200 and 400 million, and then 400 and 600 million, or 400 and above. There's different rates, and then the locality gets roughly a third of each of those tranches. And then,
You're reading out the numbers, but that's not my question.
I know it's not your question. I mean, it's not a simple calculation. You have to put it.
Where are you getting it? Where are you getting all
I made a spreadsheet. It's math. Scott Servo. I made a spreadsheet. It's math.
Where, sir?
The Code of Virginia. You take the
You
Code of
didn't
Virginia.
get these numbers from the Code of Virginia, sir.
No,
Where did you get
I
the
just
numbers?
explained it to you. There's assumptions that have gone into the developer's assumptions in the project. Things have been studied repeatedly. There's a reason the project's being proposed where it is.
So you're getting this from Wind or Comstock or whom?
The projections?
Yes.
The projected $1 billion is from the developer.
You're not going to answer the question.
Where do you live?
Where do you live?
I live in Mount Vernon. I live right here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I live in Fairfax County, sir.
Okay.
Are you attacking me for where I live?
No. This is
Well,
a
then
town hall for
please
constituents.
please
and
answer-
not for
please
people
answer
from
my
McLean
question.
and Vienna, okay?
Oh, the district that it impacts, right, the people that affects.
For those of you who haven't had an opportunity to watch the presentation that was done, and I don't know who from your group was there, I don't remember the lady's name, but you also had Clower from the University of George Mason was there.
Funded by
the
Comstock.
people.
Yeah, funded by Comstock, the Shar Economic.
I'm sorry, but we want to ask him questions.
Are you answering for the senator?
I'm suggesting if you haven't had an opportunity to look at the presentation.
We have.
We
have.
That's great.
But we want to ask him questions since he's
I'm asking
sponsoring
that the
this.
senator post and sourcing or provide
But
it
also
journalism.
what I'm suggesting to you is if.
Are you answering for him?
Are you
Because we would
answering
really
for him?
like to
No,
ask
she's the president of Mount Vernon Citizens Council.
And I'm the
and-
co-chair of the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Association. We have 15,000 members. I don't care if you get a casino or don't get a casino.
We do.
My comment is, there's interesting data on this presentation that's out on the NAACP's website. It's also on their YouTube channel. If you haven't had a chance to read it or listen to it, please do. It gives you a lot of numbers, where they get them, and it's not from the developer. You're wrong. So it's from people that are crunching these numbers, because that's what they do.
But I'm asking the senator, ma'am.
Yes. Can I speak? Yeah. Is there a microphone, please? Just go for it.
Right. Go ahead, Pine, go ahead.
Gentlemen, I wanted to take a minute to thank you, you and everybody down in Richmond for the initiatives for military retirees and combat veterans and all the good programs that are out there for us to take advantage of to make our quality of life better. I saw that the governor ceremonially moved a lot of things through last year. What is your overall vision of taking care of us moving forward? What programs are you all looking at? Anything on the docket currently or anything being talked about?
Well, in the last 3 years, we've exempted 100% military retirement pay.
I saw
From income tax.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
People know what.
You know what VIMSTEP is?
Yes. Yeah, well, it's Converse proposal that we're funding now, we're not changing any of the requirements or eligibility standards. They probably need to be changed. People are moving to Virginia, they go to school, that's their college savings plan, to move here. And so we really need to fix that. It's costing us, I mean, we're at $95 million a year, and to cover the schools where the waiver is being applied for and given. So, we have some money in the, I'm gonna get your card, get back to you, because we got some money in the Puller Center and another Veterans Center that's in this budget, but I can't remember exactly. There's a few things like that. We try to help when we can. I mean, we want to be the best state. We're not the federal government. We do not employ the military members, but we're trying to do our best.
I concur.
Yeah, I think we should all be very proud of the Commonwealth for the way we treat our veterans. We do a lot of great work. There's a bill, my parents are over in Arlington Cemetery. My dad was a Colonel in the Air Force, and I have lots of relatives. In fact, my uncle is just 3 rows away from him over there. He was also a Colonel in the Air Force. My nephew's a Marine. Our family is a very proud veteran family. But I want to say that we do have another bill that's going to help spouses of veterans because one of the problems is when, being a veteran means that you're being uprooted all the time, and you have to go to different states, and it's very difficult for a spouse to keep a job, and they have to, they have to follow with the veteran, and so we have a bill that's going to help them out. and maybe it's a budget item, but I remember, so I think that's gonna be great. All right, have we exhausted all, no, we still have a constituent over here, okay?
Yes, she has been waiting like over half an hour.
I'm sorry, we're tending not to look over to the right. I see my chief of staff, Maria Salgado, is here, thank you. And our school board member, Marcia St. John Cumming, thank you from Franconia. All right.
During the meeting, I want to thank Senator Searleville. I noticed that the community access to renewable energy, the 3 bills in the umbrella passed the Senate, but I see that the companion bills are still in committee in the House. With crossover happening next week, does that mean that the 3 bills go on the floor of the House? I'm not sure how crossover works if it's already passed in the Senate.
Well, the quick crossover lesson is, so what happens is on Sunday we have a pro forma session. So and remember what we have, to get a bill passed through the House, it has to be on first read, second read, third read. And there's only the 2 days left, Monday and Tuesday, but because of Sunday, we have that pro forma session. So any of the bills that passed on Friday night, because we were there late in appropriations, we passed a number of bills, and those will still be able to be on second read, along with all the bills that were on first read on Friday on the floor. So if it was a floor, and it wasn't just our committee, I think courts was meeting, and a few other committees. And so, until quite late, I think until the middle of the night, some of these committees were meeting. So Sunday, they would be first read, and then it comes second read. So what happens on second read, first read is just like in the book, so you know it's coming up next day. Second read is when we have the debate, and third read is when we have the vote. And on third read, you could still have, you can have questions asked, but you don't have any more debate. That all happens on second read. So there's still time to hear the bill. So that's but even if they die and didn't get across, if they come from the Senate, they'll go through the whole same process. After crossover, they'll come to the subcommittee, they'll go to the committee, they'll go to the floor, first, second, third read. So it still has life left. And many times, even if the one bill, if it's the same bill in the House and it dies, it doesn't mean that the Senate bill doesn't have any chance. Oftentimes, it just needs to be amended, or there's been a change of heart, or constituents like yourself have brought it to our attention. For example, hearing about the 40-foot, 100-foot thing, I think we all know that that's a bill that we need to probably kill. So anyway, so that's, so we didn't, but that, sometimes the constituents, it happens late, but that's why we're having these town meetings, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. You can let Maria know exactly what the bills are, so we can follow up. All right, are we done with our constituents, because we did promise? Okay, we have one right here. Yeah.
Let me ask a question, that some have already been answered, so I'm just gonna give the topic and you figure out which one to take. So hello. Happy New Year, happy Valentine's, everybody. The county, I'm just gonna name a couple of the things, questions, and you, right now, so I'm gonna have to talk one. And then you can figure out if we already answered. Will the casino plan mess up anything in the master plan for the county that the county wanted to do? Is there any state law that we could make that federal property in Virginia would have to follow? I don't know if it's help employees. Can we, is it possible to, I don't know if the law would do it, to be able to turn AI and GPS off your computer? And there's a law, I know it's not funny, but California has laws all the time, in the state.
Well, maybe that too.
Is there one question?
Oh, yeah, and is there anything that both consultants
We have a lot of votes that are 100 nothing. They're normal resolutions memorializing somebody that has a great life. There are things that we agree on, yes. But a lot of times it's a matter of degree. And so people will vote no because they think it goes too far, doesn't go far enough. but there's a lot of agreement, and, we're, on the House side, we're relatively friendly with the Republican side, you know, and we try to work with them when we can. So, there's a lot of questions in there. The federal government has immunity, so we really can't control their land. They don't pay taxes, which is a big problem in some of our local jurisdictions. The town of Portsmouth, Virginia has so much, and 60% of our land is federally owned, and they can't raise taxes, can't raise money from, they can't pay the bills. Yeah. You wanna, I think you're a Mount Vernon person.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to be selfish. The next town hall meeting is in Franconia. These gentlemen have to get to Franconia. I don't know if they've had lunch or not, but I do want them to be, fed so that they can be intellectually sharp, so that they can be answering the.
That's my favorite school board member. Right there.
So, thank you for coming. This was supposed to end 10 minutes ago. I appreciate that you stayed over, but you need to get to Franconia, and I think all of you know how to contact your elected officials otherwise.
You said you wanted to hear a question.